she's called, she answers free. Stepping hills, but she's still inside. No fear, no doubt, she won't hide. Capital lights on a battle cry. A mama lying, watch her eyes. Words are weapons, truth a blade. In the chaos, she's unafraid. Standing tall, she breaks the chain. Crimson faith runs through her veins. Oh, they whisper, you can't change it. She smiles, watch me rearrange it. Every vote, every voice ignite. For the mothers who won't lose sight. Lover scarlet rising through the storm and smoke. Voice of reason, every chain she broke. Liberty beats in her chest so loud. A freedom queen, a mother style. Crimson lights, Republican gold. This is the story, the future told. Scarlet's flame, unbreakable, free. She's the power, the legacy. Moms united, hearts aligned. Defending truth, they will not blind. Children's voices light the sky. They're the reason, they're the why. Born to blaze in the northern snow. Wisconsin roots, watch her grow. Constitution's ink on her soul. Patriot mind control. No, she don't bend, she don't fade. Faith and family foundations laid. From freedom halls to every school. She's the queen who rewrites rules. Every scarlet rising through the storm and smoke. The voice of reason, every chain she broke. Liberty beats in her chest so wild. A freedom queen, a mother style. Crimson lights, Republican gold. This is the story, the future told. Scarlet's flame, unbreakable, free. Mom for liberty, eternally. Mom for liberty, eternally. Red flame shining bright. Scarlet's name, liberty's light. Forever fight. Every scarlet forever fight.
Great song. Love it. All right. Welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. And we've got a very special episode today, 2 parts. We've got some bonus content. So I'm going to start with what we recorded just last week when I was in DC. And so it's a little different. I was in a hotel room. The quality is pretty okay, but I wanted to do some bonus content with Siena, with the Freedom Foundation, because immediately after we had recorded, she posted another article that I was really interested in, and I know that my followers and those who are following Moms for Liberty are really going to be interested in it too. So this is a long one, but it's worth it. If you want to know about how the Democratic Socialists have infiltrated education, then look no further. You are going to learn a lot. So let's go. We're going to start by playing this other. I'm going to pull this up right now. Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson. We're presented by Moms for Liberty. And this is a little different setting than what you're used to seeing because I'm in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. There's a very exciting week ahead in D.C. There's so many things going on, so many America 250 events. I've got some things I'm going to do in the White House. And then on Thursday, crossing fingers, there's going to be 2 landmark decisions that are going to be issued by the United States Supreme Court. And we're feeling good about these decisions to protect women and girls, to protect sex-separated sports, and to have this monumental ruling for biological reality, and Team Sanity can have another win. So that's the hope. So it's going to be a great week. You're going to hear a lot from me this week. But today, right now, I'm talking to somebody that I've been looking forward to for a long time. She's a young lady that does such good work, such good research. Her Substacks are amazing. She does all of these great videos on social media, Instagram. And so she hits topics that are very key and vital regarding education, parental rights, and what is happening in K through 12 education and on American college campuses. So today we are going to talk about a whole bunch of different things, as much as we can cram into 45 minutes. So I want to bring on, let's add her to, hello, hi, Siena Rose. I'm so glad that you could join me. Why don't you give a little bit of your background, and then we're going to just jump right into the topics.
Totally. Well, my name is Siena Rose. I work for the Freedom Foundation on the communications team. So I work as a communications associate and then a podcast host for my podcast, The New Frontline. And working for Freedom Foundation, we really seek to empower public employees. We do a lot with informing employees of their opt-out rights. We were a big part of the Janus ruling in 2018 to just assert that public employees have the First Amendment and constitutional right to opt out and not be forced into union membership. Before coming to Freedom Foundation, I went to the University of Montana in Missoula, Montana. And I've just really come onto the fight, and I love talking about the benefits of why public employees need to have information about all their options and what the good work is about Freedom Foundation. We're also a nonprofit, and we love talking about all these different things. We're very pro-capitalism, free markets, all that good stuff, limited accountable government. And that's a lot of what I do on my social media as well, talk about that and do as much as I can to talk about these different union issues.
Did it surprise you when you first started to hear, because you deal a lot with in public sector unions opting out, did it surprise you to learn that parents were unable to opt their own very young children out of controversial curriculum, that they were being denied the right to say, no, I don't want my kids to learn these topics or talk about values that don't align. I don't want my kids in a classroom talking about things that don't align with our values. That it took the United States Supreme Court to come in and say, yeah, we're going to reaffirm a parent's parental rights, something that Harmeet Dillon just said, like, this is natural law. This is just common sense. I can't believe that the government has to get involved in these cases. And yet they do. And even a year later, after Mahmoud v. Taylor, it's still happening. I mean, there's just another case in California where there had to be another injunction to reiterate that, yes, parents have the right to opt out. Parents have the right to know what's happening in their kids' classrooms. Does that surprise you?
That's a good question. I think it surprised me a little less than you might expect, but it was just overall really disappointing to hear. I think, unfortunately, it does speak to this larger culture of there's a secrecy around what happens in public schools. I know what I see in the teachers' unions is they really push a lot of framework and different teaching agendas and talking points that parents don't know about. They're all for, when it comes to like the LGBTQ rainbow agenda, teachers are safe spaces, and lots of districts put in language into contracts and stuff like that with the union that allows them to be safe spaces so that parents don't know about what their kids are being taught. They don't know about what their kids are telling their teachers. There's no sense of really mandatory reporting that I think there used to be. So it's very sad. I mean, there shouldn't be as much secrecy in the public school system as we're seeing. And I know other things with the teachers unions that I've seen. There's what I saw recently, which was very shocking, which is right along with what we're seeing happen in these big court cases right now, is that the Chicago Teachers Union in Illinois, CTU, put in this first of its kind amendment in their contract back in 2022 that allowed them to overrule what the state and what other districts had decided to do. And so in one particular case, let's see, I wrote it down for my reference, but it was about, they had put it in their contract that they were allowed to keep, like, teachers were encouraged to kind of keep secrets from what their from what like students would be telling them. And they were allowed to have no restrictions on who could go into what restroom. So there was no like girls' restroom, boys' restroom. There was no like anything like that. And so, and it's interesting because the teachers union put that in their contract that allowed them to overrule what the state had said. It's like, these are secret things that the union then hides behind these like workers' rights amendments, workers' rights acts that are really terrible misrepresentations of the language that's actually going into them. And it harms students, it deceives parents, it is detrimental to our culture and how kids are being raised up, it's detrimental to their safety, all these things. And it's really not surprising because this has been the union agenda for as long as I can remember, really.
Why would teachers unions encourage counselors and educators and staff members to keep secrets with children, minors? This is elementary school, this is middle school. Folks, if you think gender support plans are just for high school students, you are wrong. They have gender support plans in even red areas. You may think, oh, I'm in a red state. Well, Kansas, okay, that was big news. There's still things that happen even in Florida. So don't think that you're somehow immune because you've got a great governor. You're doing better than many other states and any other areas, but not immune. So why would they encourage secrecy between minors and adults, keeping secrets from parents? I can only think of nefarious reasons.
I mean, I think you're correct. The only reasons there we can think of would really be nefarious. Unfortunately, like, it's this word that we hear a lot. It's the indoctrination of the youth. The teachers unions know that they have these agenda points and these belief systems that are not in alignment with a lot of parents. You know, parents also, they trust their kids to go to these schools and to be taught STEM and reading and writing and math and all the good things and basic American history that is a unbiased, neutral representation of what's actually going on. But what the teachers unions see is that they see that, you know, parents trust their kids and these kids spend 8-9 hours with a teacher, and so they come to trust them. The teacher gains trust, and at the behest of the union in every instance that I've ever seen, they're like, we can teach these kids what we want them to believe, and the sooner you indoctrinate a child to believe a radical leftist damaging belief system, the more likely they are to carry that with them their entire life. And that can be like the smallest seed of misinformation. The teachers that really are bad actors in the system, that are kind of just, you know, agents of the Democratic Socialists of America and other bad actors, they use that to just change the culture. You know, if you change what a child can believe and what they base their morals and their belief system in, then you can change the rest of their generation and where it's going. So it's very sad, but there's only terrible reasons that I can think of why they want to do that.
I want to get back to the it's Democratic Socialists of America, but let's just last week, the superintendent of the Chicago Public Schools was in the hot seat, had to be subpoenaed, first of all, to come before Congress in order to testify because they wanted to ask some questions. I forget her name, but she was there, and the question was repeatedly asked, do you allow for teachers and staff members to keep secrets with students from parents when it comes to gender identity, or do they identify as transgender or non-binary? And she repeatedly would say, well, we're in compliance with Illinois law, which means yes. She would try and skirt around and say, oh, we think parents are the number one teachers if they agree with us. Like, there's a caveat because they don't really think that. They'll say the words, but they don't act like it. If they see parents as problematic, then, oh yeah, it's okay. Go ahead. You you have to keep secrets because that's for the benefit. It's really wrong. And I highly suggest, if anyone's interested, we talked about that committee hearing, the Education Workforce Committee, and it was very enlightening.
Yeah, I mean, I think of when Stacey Davis Gates, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union, she outright said sometime last year that, like, we own your kids are ours. So they're not even lying about it. They're not even trying to be like sly and talking about it. No, they believe that they own your children. They believe that they know what's right for your kids. They believe that they know what your kids need to believe and need to be taught. And so they're just like throwing to the wind all of these original academic standards that kids have been held to since the dawn of time, or since the dawn of America, and what Americans believe that we should, be teaching our kids. And they're throwing that away to say, no, we own your kids. We know what we want to teach them. And we're going to teach them about socialism and communism and how to hate America and how to be anti-capitalist. And the list goes on.
Well, it sounds like they're following the edict of they're marching through the institutions, and the very last institution to conquer is the institution of families. That's the end game, because that's the most difficult. So you have to break these kids apart. You have to put them through struggle sessions, make them endure these trauma so that they can trauma bond with the kids afterward, and then sort of indoctrinate them. And this isn't something that works on all kids, but it certainly could work on the most vulnerable kids. And that's what makes me the most angry, because the victims of this propaganda war are often the most vulnerable.
I agree. And I saw that firsthand. I was in Chicago for the May Day protest back on May 1st last month, and it was fascinating and just so dystopian. I went to a rally that was early in the morning in Logan Square, I believe, and there were like parents brought some of their kids, parents who were fully, drinking the socialist Kool-Aid, if you will, like who were fully believing in that, and were very pro-union and in line with whatever the CTU was putting on. But they brought their toddlers, and they were like little toddlers and like second graders and third graders and actual children who like barely even knew how to read, holding these signs that their parents obviously made for them. And then we saw teachers from the local elementary wearing like the CTU garb bring all their kids in, take their kids out of the classroom and bring them to a union protest. It was ridiculous to see. I'm like, these kids, like, we don't need to talk about dumbing down why you should be anti-ICE and why you should be anti-President Trump. We don't need to talk about why it's important to dumb down those principles so that a 2-year-old can understand it or a 3-year-old can understand it. I think it's unbelievably detrimental to how a student learns and how a kid's development happens. And it's just not necessary for a child to have these big social justice issues thrust upon their shoulders. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, since Chicago's doing such a great job educating students, their proficiency rates are so high. These kids are like just blowing us all away with STEM. I mean, they have time for all this social justice nonsense, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I mean, the literacy rates are going down, but they're spending over $30,000 per student. And I think the attendance and the enrollment rate for Chicago Public Schools is lower than ever. So it's like enrollment's going down, spending's going up, but literacy rates are still going down. Like this equation doesn't make sense. And again, that is behind a lot of the ridiculous spending and the erroneous choices that they're pushing the district to make.
They're abysmal. I mean, they are abysmal. It's shocking what they spend per pupil and the results. And then they go to war when parents dare try to opt out of the system, dare try to use a charter school. Of course, all the word private education, it's public school for thee, but not for me, because they know language claim to be there to save, which is the most ridiculous thing of all, that they actually claim to be the saviors when they are the ones condemning kids to a lifetime of poverty because they can't read.
Absolutely. And it's Chicago's the union leader, Stacey Davis Gates. She talks about we own your kids, but she puts her own son in a private school. It's like she can't even abide by what she's saying. She can't even say it with her chest. It's terrible. And nobody seems to be talking about that, how hypocritical these union leaders are, where they say one thing and they do something completely opposite.
Now, I want to switch gears. It's actually not even switching gears, because these topics align. But you just released a great investigative piece about DSAs, and you've done this. There's actually several of them, and I kind of went through. I have a ton of notes. I have watched a lot of the trainings that have Becky Pringle. I watched several where Becky Pringle, she is the president of the NEA, the largest public sector union in the country, 3 million members. And she's there with Democratic Socialists and the Sunrise Movement and all these other like very far left extremists, openly Marxist groups, these NGOs, these nonprofits, and operatives that worked with the Mandami campaign, interviews too. They, guess what else and everyone's like, oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with education. Oh, it does, because they had students come on, several students that were in high school and middle school, to talk about how they got involved, how they stood up, how they led protests out of the school. And they were cheerleading this. This is exactly what they want. So thinking about that, tell me more about your research. Tell everyone why this is important.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so important. I think one of the big things that I come back to is just talking about like the money and the funding. One of the things that we talk about at Freedom Foundation a lot is that all of the money that unions are spending to back these various things are coming from taxpayer dollars. You know, a public employee is funded by taxpayer money, and then that dues money is automatically deducted, usually through the government employee payroll system, to pay these unions. And so they're taking this money that they're telling union members, hey, this money is going to represent you in representational activities, including like bargaining and workforce disputes. But no, most of it is going towards funding these ridiculous political action committees, these things like the 1630 Fund, the SPLC, all of these different and very radical, far left, damaging, anti-capitalist, anti-American things are what's being funded with taxpayer money. It's terrible. We were looking at some more numbers, and the AFT and the NEA, I think someone looked at the numbers, and it was like 36 cents on the dollar actually went towards representing teachers. And teachers pay $800, $900 a year when it comes to union membership. All of that should be spent on them. And it's not. It's being spent on these ridiculous things that put LGBTQ, like pro-abortion media in classrooms and in hallways where kids can see it. It funds like pushing the Zinn framework, which teaches anti-American and incorrect American history to students. Like the list just goes on. And then it goes towards paying Becky Pringle and Randy Weingarten like $500,000 a year to go on TV and run their mouth. It's just absurd. A lot of our research really does come down to the money. It's like, even if wherever you stand on a political spectrum, it's like taxpayer money and what we were putting towards good things should not be spent on highly political, highly partisan, radical, damaging, anti-American agenda points.
I couldn't agree more. And while you were in Chicago and May, I was
Oh, Scarlett, I don't think I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't.
No? All right, hold on. So, Siena, I want to talk about this pamphlet, okay? The Democratic Socialists of America put it in writing in a pamphlet titled, Why Socialists Should Become Teachers. They called education, and I'm quoting here, a strategic industry to organize, not a calling, not about the children, not an effort for civic education, or it was a strategic industry to organize. That's shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking. In that same pamphlet, I was reading the same thing too. They had a quote in it, at least on the online version, where it says like the educator has the duty of not being neutral. Or Democratic Socialists are specific. I know it's almost comical that they say that sort of stuff, but they have this idea, this sick idea, I would say, that it's the job of them to encourage socialists and young socialists to become teachers, to then get these people who have their very specific radicalized beliefs into the classroom, close to young people and children who are very vulnerable and easy to influence. Like I was telling you earlier, like the sooner you get a child to believe something, the more likely they are to internalize it and take that with them. I mean, we see that in, how we bring up our children with morals and their general belief systems. And that's the same thing with socialists, but they're doing it and intentionally targeting young children to get them to be pro-socialist and pro-communist, anti-capitalism, which then goes to attack all sorts of pro-American values and Western values and all that sort of stuff. It's fascinating. The DSA has a lot of other rhetoric around this sort of stuff about activating and intentionally telling people like to target older folks, how to intentionally reactivate populations, how to intentionally bring these people in so that they're active members. I think the DSA also interestingly just surpassed like 100,000 members. So they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, official democratic socialist organization in America. I was on a call with someone a few weeks ago, Natalia Murkover, who heads up the Restore Childhood nonprofit, and she has a great Substack too. And she said that she was like, I think they're literally an enemy of the state because they're seeking to dismantle capitalism. And they just put out this ridiculous manifesto where they also called for the eradication of basically the American government, where they want to change the structure and burn it all down and rebuild it from the ground up into a new socialist utopia. So they're putting out stuff that's new every day. This isn't like just some bizarre fringe ideology. This is here, it's present in America, it's in the classrooms. And they're, in many ways, they're targeting and they're working with teachers unions in cohesion with them to get people more acquainted with socialism. There's all sorts of stuff online if you just look it up. And I mean, the Democratic Socialists post everything. So there's like, we're not lying. This is all online. Anyone can go read it. It's fascinating. They're preying on the student-teacher relationship specifically, where they know that teachers have the ability to influence kids and to encourage them to shape their beliefs. And they're doing it, but in the intention of bringing up this new militant generation and raising up the next generation of the resistance. It's shocking. I'm sure that you were shocked when you saw that pamphlet too.
Yes, and that brings me to, I did a live stream, gosh, this must have been 6 months ago, the roadmap to political revolution. I'm looking right now at the graphic that they put out. And here you've got Becky Pringle and a whole like congressmen, senators, and this leader of the Sunrise Movement. I mean, the title of it is the Roadmap to Political Revolution. And they kind of talked about the steps to get there. It's just what you said. It's right out of the talking points of the Democratic Socialists of America. They don't think Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or the old guard, the Clintons, the Obamas, they are not radical enough. They yearn for the day where they can have their young, very radical activists in key positions of power. And then they want to take over the Democratic Party. And once they do that, then they're going to take over all of government. And then, of course, no one that voted for Trump will ever be able to do so again. There'll never be another Trump again. I mean, how do you get there except through tyranny and oppression and the silencing of free speech and free thought? These are not friends of free speech. They are not friends of democracy. They are not friends of the Western civilization. They have a message of tyrants. That's the only way I see it, really.
I agree. And I mean, I read about this stuff all day, and it's almost comical to me that I'm like, this is one of those things where I'm like, am I the only one that sees the emperor is wearing no clothes? Like, am I the only one who sees that this is literally insane? The DSA or that particular, the Sunrise Movements, the Roadmap to Political Revolution, they're saying the quiet part out loud. It's Becky Pringle, a union leader, next to politicians, next to like a socialist and Marxist figurehead, talking about these things. It's like, no longer are we in the era where we can make the argument that teachers unions only work for teachers and that government unions only work for their employees. No, they're doing everything except actually working for their employees and working for their members. They're spending 36 cents on the dollar actually representing their students or their teachers and their union members. They're spending millions upon millions of dollars of, funding Kamala Harris's presidential campaign or funding political action committees. Many of them funded Zohran Mamdani's campaign. They funded Katie Wilson's campaign over in Seattle, Washington, these different union affiliates. Like, they're doing everything except what they're supposed to be doing, which is working for union members with representational activities. It's really comical. I think that's the only way I can start to wrap my head around it is I'm like, these people are lost and they have one goal, which is to decimate America and raise values.
So what does a curriculum look like when it focuses on the priorities of the Democratic Socialists of America? I think Chicago let us know on May Day when they put out I mean, Corey DeAngelis was like, I found the curriculum. They actually sent it to me. Here it is. And it's crazy. I think it's almost so crazy that the average person, it didn't get enough traction. Because I think most people think, that's so, it's like so over the top, that's not happening. That's not happening. Well, talk to your kids, because you'll find out that it's happening. It's like, it might not be the full on Marxist, but teaching kids through the lens and bit by bit, piece by piece, breaking down traditional values and the, patriotism and pride in America, and kind of making them think, well, America kind of sucks.
Yeah, no, it's a huge like shift in the basis of how teachers are being influenced with this curriculum that's coming from the unions and how they're teaching kids. Like, I feel like at some point when I was growing up, we were taught, look at all these different things and consider how to think and how to arrive at this conclusion. Now they're just being taught what to think, and they're being taught, like, in no uncertain terms, that President Trump is the arbiter of all evil, and that capitalism has ruined America, and that in some more extreme examples, the Zinn framework, which is again that book, a people's history of the United States framework that's backed by the NEA, based on that book, teaches things about, like, 9/11, the event was understandable. Columbus was a genocidal criminal, or like the October 7th attacks from Hamas were also understandable and also made sense. So it's not just a complete rewriting of history, but it's a changing of empathy. Unions are in this incredible hypocrisy. They're like, we are the party of unity, we're the party of collective power and a collective voice, but also we say the most hateful things that you could even imagine. And we're teaching our kids that no, actually these terrible things, even some kids are like believing that the Holocaust wasn't real. And it's like, okay, where are they learning that? They're learning that from the NEA that sends out this curriculum to their teachers that says, hey, this day is about Palestine. We're going to show you a map of the Israeli area that doesn't say Israel at all, that rewrites it to just say Palestine. It's sick, truly.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge population of the May Day movement that were carrying these anti-Israel, anti-Semitic signs. It was crazy. I think the very interesting thing was they wanted no work, no school, no shopping. They didn't even want nurses to go in. They didn't want doctors to go in. I mean, I thought that these were like bleeding heart progressives, yet what are they doing? They're condemning people to harm and real danger when they're basically requesting everyone just stay home. Well, what happens if a child falls and breaks their arm? What happens when there's an elderly person that falls and needs an emergency surgery? What happens to all of those that are in elder care? What happens when they said, let's shut down the daycares, and parents, they can't go to work? I mean, they were trying. They were unsuccessful. There were little pockets of success. And I went on Fox News to talk about one area in Madison, Wisconsin, and you were in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They had very small pockets of success. North Carolina was pretty crazy, but it's because the organizer lives there. But had they been successful, I mean, a whole lot of American families would have been kind of really stuck, and they didn't care. That was the point. They wanted to bring pain to ordinary people, enough pain that they would say, just make it stop.
I agree. It was very interesting. I mean, all that signage I saw on May Day, like you said, it's like no work, no play, no shopping, no nothing, tax the rich. So I'm like, so you just want like the economy to come to a stop, and you don't want to have any, you want to be bored to death? Like, I don't understand what the goal is here. And it was sad. I mean, at some of the rallies too, like we saw lots of students get bussed in. Corey DeAngelis posted some videos and photos that I had sent him while I was on the ground. And it was absurd. We're watching like buses and buses of these high schoolers from the Chicago area be bussed in on buses provided by the school system because they couldn't say no to the union. They just folded the union's request. And these kids, half of them get there and they're handed signs and they look bored to death. I saw a lot of girls actually, I wish I would have gotten a video or like a picture of it, but several teenage girls, like, they're like, okay, their teacher said, okay, come back here at this time and we'll head back, or whatever, your parents can pick you up if you've made arrangements. And they would just walk off away from the protest to go get a coffee. Like, they didn't care that they were there. It wasn't about education for the students. It wasn't about like talking about the history of this day. It was just for the union to make a point. And the worst thing is that they're using these kids as foot soldiers in this culture war to make this point. It's completely despicable. I think as an adult, you can do what you want. You have your free reign. You can go spend your time how you like, but don't bring kids into it. Don't bring minors into it. Don't take away from their school time. It can be reasonable for once, but we really can't even ask the unions to be reasonable like that.
And they tried to say this wasn't a political rally. Well, I was in DC, and I actually got to hear Becky Pringle speak live. It was nothing but a political rally. There wasn't one single sentence that had to do with education. It was all about a variety of highly controversial political topics. They didn't mention kids once, except for the trans kids that they were trying to save from like genocide. It was insane. And so to claim that this wasn't at all political, this was just teaching kids about civics. No, you were cramming propaganda down their throats and then celebrating it. And most of the signs had something to do with Trump. And I couldn't even post a lot of the video I had because the signs had such bad language, and the imagery, and a lot of very, very, it wasn't made for Moms for Liberty social media. Let's just say that. I couldn't put a lot of it on the air. And I was with my friend Bill Brewer, and we were just like, what is going on here? This has nothing to do with education. That's nothing to do with the people. This is all just a bunch of political propaganda. And most of the people here are they all have a different cause du jour, and it just was a weird mix.
Absolutely. When I was at the rally in May Day, the central one was happening in Union Park, and it took a couple hours for it to kind of get in the full swing of things. But I made a YouTube video for the Freedom Foundation podcast that's on our YouTube. So if anyone's curious, it's on our YouTube.
It was very good.
But it was so interesting to be there and to talk to these people. Like they had, there was several booths that had things set up about, anti-fascist, anti-President Trump. President Trump is the equivalent of Hitler. Like lots of very unsettling depictions of President Trump as Hitler. I was like, this is a lot for me to see. It's one thing to read about it online and to do your research. It's an entirely other thing to be there in person, to see these people and talk to them and meet them, and like, oh, they're so deep in this intense misinformation cesspool. And there were lots of these communist groups that were set up outside like playgrounds. There's one lady we talked to. I was like, oh, you're set outside a playground. She goes, haha, we did that on purpose. It's like, how unsettling that you would just admit to that. And there were other groups that had more signage, like handing out copies of the Communist Manifesto, handing out flyers to get involved with your local like communist or socialist clubs in the area. Very, very political. I was like, in no way ever was this about the kids. The kids were just a part of the vehicle to make the point. And what some people don't know that I actually learned, one of my coworkers went with me there, and his family is from the Chicago area. And so they were telling us about the development from the parents' side of the education system, what the parents had seen. And there was a group that actually sued, I believe, the Chicago Teachers Union to be like, hey, we don't want the union to be pushing to take our kids out of schools to go do this. So there was a big group of parents, very hearteningly so, that fought back against this misuse of taxpayer money in school time. But many teachers that were pushing this to bring their kids to May Day, the parents were told that they had to intentionally like opt their kid out for it. So if parents didn't say anything, their kid would automatically be included in these field trips to this dangerous and chaotic rally. They had to intentionally know about it and go into the school and seek out and say, hey, I want to intentionally opt my kid out of this. How backwards is that? You had to intentionally opt your kids out of a rally?
I'm a mom of 5 kids, and I can't tell you, if you miss an email, or you didn't read the fine print, click here to opt out, then your kid is automatically assumed that you give permission. Another case for opting in. They abuse that system, especially now that they don't send anything home with the kids. It's all electronic. They send a million emails. Parents, even good, diligent parents, may miss one email. They may not get to the bottom of that newsletter. And then what do you know? Their kids are out gallivanting around town when they should be in school getting coffee, and I really care. But you question the kids a little bit. Why are you out here? They don't know, or they say a talking point and they can't go any further. It's so shallow. It's just they're the victims. Again, they're being made to be foot soldiers, and kids are compelled to go to school. They're compelled to be there. And I think it is immoral and illegal for teachers unions and administrators and adults with that kind of power to abuse it in such a way.
I agree. It's completely an inappropriate use of their power. And there were some, when I was at the rallies, there were some like parents that had took their kids out of school and took their kids with them. And I believe in a place, America, where we have free speech and you can do what you want with your family. If you want to impose these beliefs on your kids, that you have all the right to do that. But your teacher that you're paying taxpayer dollars to fund their union and everything, your teachers should not be doing that for you. Like, I feel like teachers unions are assuming the role of a parent in many ways. And it's like, okay, we're going to talk to your kid about sex ed. We're going to talk to them about abortion. We're going to talk to them about these deeply political things. We're going to talk to them about the presidential administration and all of the perceived injustices that maybe seem. It's like, no, what we're talking about in schools is history and math and science. And there are so many incredible common sense teachers out there who are like, whether they agree with the actions of the union or not, they're like, this is not the job of the union. The job of a union is to bargain over your wages, benefits, and working conditions, not to dive into this stuff, not to fund political action committees, not to tell us how to teach our kids about the LGBTQ agenda and whatever. I'm always heartened to meet the teachers. We have our Teacher Freedom Summit coming up in July, actually, in Dallas. And there are so many great teachers who come to that every year who talk about how encouraging it is to be supported and surrounded by common sense people who believe the same as them. Is like, your political beliefs do not come into the classroom and the union should not be commenting on them. And then it's a stark, terrifying reality to go to May Day and see the exact opposite of teachers who think it's their duty and their job. And the reason they're put on this earth is to indoctrinate the kids in their classroom.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in closing, I wanted you to give a call to action and talk about, are there options for teachers? Can they do something different? Can they say, no, I am not going to be a part of this anymore? And you don't have to be a Republican or a conservative to just not want to indoctrinate other people's children, to just not want to compel the speech of children, or to keep secrets from parents. I think that a lot of common sense educators are not comfortable with this, and it should not be shoved down their throats either.
I agree. Well, thankfully, there are a lot of options for public employees and teachers who don't want to be stuck with the government union. It's certainly not your only option, as much as the unions will want you to think that it is. But we actually launched a new website recently called empoweredemployees.com, and that's empowered-employees.com. And it lists out all the options available to public employees. The first option is to opt out, which is where you can go through Opt Out Today, our sister website as well, that we help generate an opt-out letter, and we will send it to your union on behalf of the public employee, and help you start the opt-out process. Sometimes it is lengthy. Unions will ignore opt-out letters. They will fight back. They will try and claim they didn't see it. But there's always the opt-out. That's one of the good ones. Another one is to decertify or try and recertify a local union. Those are things that are more in tune with the different cycles of like law and district regulations in various school districts and where you might be at. But that's always an option. Like, if you want to be part of a union, but you don't want to do the big government teachers union, you can create your own local affiliate that is focused on what you need, the job of a union, and insurance and all that sort of stuff. And then we also have the Teacher Freedom Alliance, which is a great organization headed up by Ryan Walters. Fantastic guy. He's so focused on this mission. I'm always inspired chatting with him because he's had the experience of being a teacher, and he's worked in Oklahoma, so he's seen the system super up close. But he heads up the Teacher Freedom Alliance, which provides free membership. It's a non-union alternative for teachers, so you're not paying anything, you're not paying extra, you're not paying anything in dues. You get all the support you need. I believe we partner with PragerU Kids to create curriculum that's available for teachers, that's America focused and doesn't bring in all this random stuff with it. But there are options. I would say those are the two websites I'd point people towards, empoweredemployees.com and the teacherfreedomalliance.com.
And where can people learn more about you, read your Substack, watch your podcast? And then I will make sure that I put all of this information in the comments.
Totally. Well, on all social media, I am at Real Siena Rose, and my Substack is also at Real Siena Rose, and I post Substack articles biweekly, usually on topics like capitalism and socialism and communism. I am a Christian, so there is a faith-based angle to some things. I talk about education and what we're seeing in the culture, how things in culture are changing because of the influence of unions and because of the influence of the woke agenda and democratic socialists, as we've talked a lot about. Freedom Foundation is at Freedom Foundation on all socials, and then the podcast is on the Freedom Foundation YouTube, and it is the New Frontline podcast with Siena Rose.
Thank you so much for coming on today. And there's so much more. We have to do this again because there was so much left on the table. But I think that it's made very clear that teachers unions do not have the best interests of students, of teachers, of parents at heart. They have become highly political, controversial organizations, and they are interested in indoctrinating and creating foot soldiers. They've got a political agenda, and we have got to figure this out because they just have way too much power in K through 12 education.
I absolutely agree. I couldn't have not have said it better myself.
Thank you for coming on, Siena. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Scarlett.
What a great conversation.